Farmers worldwide use more than 2 million tons of chemical pesticides each year to kill insects that eat their crops. We're told that these chemicals are essential for preventing serious crop losses. But what are the costs, not only in dollars, but also in ravages to our personal and environmental health? After all, pesticides are poisons. They can contaminate our food and spread through the ecosystem, endangering our health and our environmental support system in ways that we are not even aware of. The massive use of pesticides has become addictive. The more we use, the more we need. The chemicals kill off susceptible insects and leave insects most resistant to pesticides to multiply. With mounting pesticide resistance, farmers have to apply more and more to get the same results. It's an expensive habit. And with an ever-increasing world population, rising costs for crop production, and a growing clamor over health and safety concerns, there is a compelling need for affordable and game-changing alternatives. A dramatic story about small-scale cotton farmers in India show how one village broke away from its pesticide addiction, inspiring thousands of others to do the same. The story began in the early 1980s, when cotton production started spreading through the Andhra Pradesh state. The high value of cotton made it an exceptionally attractive crop, but growing cotton required chemical fertilizers and pesticides. As most of the farmers were poor, illiterate, and without previous experience using agricultural chemicals, they were forced to rely upon local agricultural dealers for advice. The dealers sold them seeds, fertilizers, and pesticides on credit, and also guaranteed purchase of their crop. At first, cotton yields were high and expenses for pesticides were low because cotton pests had not yet moved in. The farmers had never earned so much. But within a few years, cotton pests like bollworms and aphids plagued the fields, and farmers saw how rapid the evolution of pesticide resistance in insects could be. As the pesticides became less effective, the farmers used more and more. Eventually, they were mixing pesticide cocktails containing as many as 10 different brands, and sometimes had to spray their cotton as frequently as 2 times a week. At the same time, the pesticides killed off birds, wasps, beetles, spiders, and other predators that had once provided natural control of pest insects. Without these predators, the pests could destroy the entire crop if pesticides were not used. The farmers were really hooked. Exposure to the toxic chemicals was intense because these small-scale farmers had to spray their fields by hand. Even children sometimes helped. Most people had no protective gear or training on how to use, store, or dispose of these dangerous chemicals. They were exposed to the pesticides from inhaling the fumes and from skin contact. The chemicals also seeped into their underground water supply, contaminating their drinking water. Chronic health problems such as headaches, nausea, skin rashes, eye problems, fatigue, and depression became common. And sometimes people collapsed while spraying their fields, with permanent nerve damage or even death. Enormous medical bills drove families further into debt. It seemed like an inescapable trap. The cotton was also depleting essential plant nutrients in the soil, leaving the farmers no choice but to use ever larger quantities of costly chemical fertilizers. Soon, the cost to produce cotton was more than they could earn from selling it. Since they bought their fertilizers and pesticides on credit, the farmers fell further and further into debt. To feed their children, Some families were forced to hand over their children to other farmers as indentured laborers. If someone tried to quit growing cotton, the agricultural chemical dealer would say, "You can stop, but of course if you are no longer my customer, I expect you to repay your debt right away." Despair over debt and health problems were so severe that the suicide rate in Andhra Pradesh became the highest in India. The favored method was to drink a pesticide cocktail. Then, around 1996, a non-profit organization called Socio-Economic and Cultural Upliftment in Rural Environment, SECURE for short, started talking to the farmers in Punukula, a small village of approximately 900 people, about changing the way they raised cotton. SECURE arranged for some of the villagers to travel 200 miles to visit a small farm that was successfully using natural methods to control agricultural pests. The villagers were hesitant, but one of Punukula's village elders decided to risk trying the natural methods instead of chemical pesticides. SECURE's staff coached this villager on how to protect his cotton crop by using natural methods that India's Center for Sustainable Agriculture put together in collaboration with scientists. They called this toolkit Non-Pesticidal Management, or NPM. The most important resource in the NPM toolkit was the neem tree, which is common throughout much of India. Neem trees protect themselves against insects with a variety of chemical defenses. These defenses prevent insects from laying their eggs, interfere with insect growth, and disrupt the ability of crop-eating insects to sense their food. Unlike commercial pesticides, which usually employ a single toxic chemical, neem has a wide array of chemical defenses. And because neem's toxins evolved specifically to defeat plant-eating insects, its insect enemies cannot develop resistance. The toxins are harmless to humans and other animals, including the birds and insects that eat pest insects. To protect crops from insects, neem leaves and seeds are ground into a powder that is soaked overnight in water. The solution is then sprayed onto the crop. Another use of neem is to pack the leaves and seeds together to form a cake that is mixed into the soil to kill pests and diseases there. And it doubles as an organic fertilizer, high in nitrogen. Neem trees grow locally, so the only cost is the labor to prepare neem for the application to fields. In addition to neem, non-pesticidal management makes use of 10 other natural methods for combating pest insects. Spraying a homemade chili garlic solution onto the cotton will cause the pest insects to fall off the crop, but it does not harm other insects. Applying a mixture of cow dung and cow urine onto cotton plants. The mixture forms a rough coating on the surface of the plants, creating a barrier that keeps the pests from feeding or laying their eggs there. The dung and urine also serve as a natural fertilizer. Applying a naturally occurring virus that infects cotton bollworms. Farmers can manage this biological warfare themselves by gathering infected bollworms from their cotton plants and grinding them into a solution, which is sprayed on the crop with lethal results for the bollworms and no harm to other creatures. Planting trap crops such as sorghum, marigold, castor, and maize in and around the fields to attract pest insects away from the cotton. Removing and burning cotton and trap crop branches that are heavily infested. Putting out small boards painted white or yellow and covered with sticky grease to trap pest insects. Lighting small bonfires on moonless nights to attract and kill bollworm moths. enlisting insect-eating birds as allies by planting bird perches in the fields. Deep summer plowing to disrupt the life cycle of bollworms and other pests whose pupae are in the soil. And using inexpensive pheromone tablets to attract bollworm moths and trap them in plastic bags. With careful insect monitoring, farmers can save time and effort by spraying their fields with neem or using other natural methods only when pest insects are abundant enough to damage the crop. The first farmer's trial with NPM was a complete success. His harvest was as good as the harvests of other farmers that were using chemical pesticides, and he had a good profit because he did not spend a single rupee on pesticides. Inspired by his success, 20 other farmers in Punukula village tried NPM the next year. Secure posted 2 well-trained staff in the village to help everyone get started with the natural methods, and the village women put pressure on their husbands to stop using toxic chemicals. Families that were no longer exposing themselves to pesticides began to feel much better. The rapid improvements in income, health, and general well-being quickly convinced others on the value of NPM. By the year 2000, all the farmers in Punukula were using NPM, not only for cotton, but for their other crops as well. In 2004, the village council declared Punukula a pesticide-free village. The villagers also began earthworm composting, so they no longer needed chemical fertilizers. They were once again organic farmers, but with a modern and more effective toolkit than they had used in their traditional past. Within a few years, the populations of insect-eating birds and other insect predators returned, providing natural pest control, so less neem was needed. As pesticide and fertilizer costs and medical bills went down, farmers were able to start paying off their debts. By presenting a united front, the villagers were able to resist the dealers' attempts to bully them into immediate repayment of their debts, and within a few years, the debts were paid off. The suicide epidemic came to an end, and with the cash, health, and energy that returned when they stopped poisoning themselves with the pesticides, the villagers were inspired to start more community and business projects. The women of Punukula created a new source of income by collecting, grinding, and selling neem for NPM in other villages. The villagers rescued their indentured children and gave them special courses to return to school. Fighting against pesticides and winning increased village solidarity, self-confidence, and optimism about the future. When dealers tried to punish NPM users by paying less for NPM cotton, the farmers united to form a marketing cooperative that found fairer prices elsewhere. The leadership and collaboration skills that the citizens of Punukula developed in the NPM struggle have helped them to take on other challenges, like purifying their drinking water, building a cotton gin to add value to the cotton before they sell it, and convincing the state government to support NPM over the objection of multinational pesticide corporations. Devising the NPM toolkit and putting it to use was an eco-tipping point, a lever that turned the farmers and their environmental support system from decline to a path of restoration and sustainability. NPM is now taught in local schools, and the state government's Society for Elimination of Rural Poverty has provided NPM training to thousands of women in self-help groups throughout the state. In 2008, 340,000 farmers in more than 3,000 villages were using NPM on nearly 1 million acres of cropland, not only for cotton, but also for grain and vegetable crops. The escape from pesticide addiction continues to spread across the region, showing that it really can be done. And it can be done with readily available and inexpensive natural materials. The achievements of these farmers offer lessons for us all about enlisting nature to do the work of restoring and sustaining a healthy environment.